I remember the weight of the gown, not just the fabric, though it was heavier than I expected, polyester trying to be elegant, but the weight of what it meant. 4 years, compressed into royal blue cloth and a cardboard mortarboard. I stood in front of my apartment mirror that morning, alone, adjusting the tassel, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment they'll finally see me. The apartment was quiet. My roommate had already left for her own ceremony across town. Outside, May rain tapped against the window in that persistent way spring rain has, like it's trying to tell you something but can't quite form the words. I smoothed the gown over my dress, simple, cream-colored, the nicest thing I owned, and tried to imagine my mother's face when she saw me walk across that stage. I'd been imagining that face my whole life. The earliest memory I have is of standing in the kitchen doorway, maybe 4 years old, watching my mother braid my sister Diane's hair. Diane was 7, and her hair caught the morning light like honey. My mother's hands moved with such gentleness, weaving the strands with a kind of reverence I didn't have words for yet. I stood there, my own hair unbrushed and tangled, waiting for her to notice me. She never did. Not that morning. Not most mornings. I learned early that some people are born into families where love is assumed, automatic, like breathing, and some of us have to earn it, prove we deserve it. I spent my childhood trying to solve the equation of my mother's affection, believing if I just found the right formula, the right grades, the right silence, the right way of being, she would look at me the way she looked at Diane, the way she looked at my brother Marcus. But that morning, standing in my graduation gown, I still believed. I had to. The invitation had been sent weeks ago. I'd called to confirm. My mother's voice on the phone had been neutral, non-committal. "We'll be there," she'd said. Not, "We're so proud," or "We can't wait," just, "We'll be there." I told myself it was enough. The ceremony itself is a blur now, but I remember fragments. The smell of cut grass from the lawn where we assembled, the way the chairs squeaked when 1,500 graduates shifted in unison. The dean's voice echoing across the quad, words about futures and potential that sounded both inspiring and terrifying. I remember scanning the crowd during the processional, trying to spot my family. The sun had broken through the rain, and everything was too bright, faces washing out into anonymous pale ovals. I found them eventually, 4th row, off to the left. My mother wore navy blue. She always wore navy or black, colors that announced seriousness, competence, control. Diane sat beside her in something floral and spring-like. Marcus was on the end, checking his phone. My father, quiet, perpetually tired my father, sat between Marcus and my mother, his hands folded in his lap like he was at a funeral instead of a graduation. They didn't wave when I finally caught my mother's eye. She just nodded, once. A small, economical movement that could have meant anything or nothing. My name was called, Elise Catherine Morgan, and I walked across the stage with my heart, performing acrobatics in my chest. I shook the dean's hand, accepted the diploma folder, empty, except for a congratulatory note that said the real diploma would be mailed, smiled for the photographer. The whole thing took maybe 20 seconds. 20 seconds to mark the end of 4 years of late nights in the library, of scholarship applications and part-time jobs and ramen noodles and profound, aching loneliness. When I returned to my seat, I looked back. Diane was taking a selfie. Marcus was still on his phone. My mother was looking at her program. Only my father met my eyes, and he offered a small, sad smile that made something inside me crack just slightly. After the ceremony, we met near the south entrance where families were gathering. Everyone talking too loud, everyone hugging, everyone crying happy tears. I walked toward them with my diploma folder clutched against my chest like a shield. "Congratulations," my mother said. She didn't move to hug me. She stood with her purse held in front of her like a barrier, and she said the word, the way someone might say noted or acknowledged. "Thanks, Mom." I tried to smile. "I'm really glad you all came." "Of course we came," Diane said, but she was looking past me, scanning the crowd. "Is there somewhere we can take pictures? The light's terrible here." We took pictures. my mother's arm around my shoulder in that stiff way that looks affectionate in photos but feels like a wooden plank in person. Diane took over the photography, directing us like we were models. "Smile bigger, Elise. You look serious. It's supposed to be a happy day." I smiled bigger. The restaurant was my choice. A small Italian place downtown that I'd passed countless times but never been able to afford. I'd made the reservation 3 weeks ago, confirmed it twice. It felt important, symbolic somehow, that I choose the place, that I have some small measure of control over this day. We were seated at a round table near the back, the kind of table that forces everyone to face everyone else, nowhere to hide. The waiter brought bread and olive oil, took our drink orders. My mother ordered white wine. My father ordered water. Marcus ordered a beer, though he'd just turned 21 and still held the bottle like it was a trophy. Diane ordered rosé and talked about how she preferred the restaurants in her neighborhood in Chicago, where she'd moved after her own graduation 3 years ago. I ordered water and tried to remember how to breathe normally. The conversation flowed around me like I was a stone in a stream. Diane talked about her marketing job, the client she'd landed, the apartment she was thinking of moving to. Marcus talked about finishing his junior year, about the summer internship he'd gotten at an investment firm through one of my father's connections. My mother asked questions, offered advice, laughed at Marcus's stories about his college fraternity. I sat there, my graduation gown folded on the chair beside me, and I waited for someone to ask about my plans, about my job offers, about the honors I'd graduated with, about anything. The food came. Pasta, chicken, salad. I'd ordered gnocchi because it sounded comforting, but each bite felt like swallowing stones. My mother talked about her garden, about the roses that were coming in beautifully this year. My father ate quietly, occasionally glancing at me with that same sad expression from the ceremony. "So, Elise," Diane finally said, twirling pasta on her fork, "what are you going to do now? Move back home?" The table went quiet. My mother took a slow sip of her wine. "No," I said. "I have a job starting in July at a consulting firm downtown, and I'm keeping my apartment." "Consulting?" My mother said the word like she was testing it, finding it wanting. "That's vague. What does that even mean?" "It means I'll be working with companies on strategy, operations, efficiency improvements." I'd practiced this explanation. I'd been proud of this job offer. "It's a good position. Competitive salary." My mother set down her wine glass. "Diane started in marketing. Marcus is going into finance. Both clear paths. Consulting sounds like you couldn't decide what you actually wanted to do." Something inside me, something I'd kept carefully controlled for 22 years, shifted. "I wanted to do something I was good at," I said quietly. "Something that interested me." "Everything interests you," my mother said. "You've never been able to focus, even as a child, always flitting from one thing to another, never committing." It wasn't true. I'd been on the honor roll every semester. I'd worked 2 jobs to minimize my student loans. I'd volunteered, led a student organization, published research with one of my professors. I had committed to everything, desperately, hoping one achievement might finally be enough. "That's not fair, Mom," I said. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking in my lap. "Fair?" She laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Elise, I'm trying to be honest with you. Someone has to be. You've spent 4 years studying business and liberal arts and whatever else, and now you're taking a job that basically means you don't know what you're doing with your life." "I graduated summa cum laude," I said. "I had a 3.94 GPA. Grades." She waved her hand dismissively. "Diane had good grades too, and she knew exactly what she wanted. She had direction. You just do well in school because it's easy for you. It doesn't mean anything." My father put his hand on her arm. "Helen," he said quietly. "Not today." She pulled her arm away. "Not today? When? Then? When she's 30 and still trying to find herself? Someone needs to tell her the truth." Diane was studying her plate. Marcus was on his phone again, or pretending to be. The restaurant hummed with other people's conversations, other families' celebrations, and I sat there, feeling like I was underwater, sound distorted, air too thick. What truth? I asked. My voice came out smaller than I intended. My mother looked at me then, really looked at me. Her eyes were the same gray-blue as mine, but there was something in them I'd seen my whole life and never been able to name. Not anger, not disappointment. Something colder, something that felt like absence. That you've always been difficult, she said. That you've always required more attention, more effort, more patience, and given back less. That you've never quite fit with this family, no matter how hard we've tried. The words hung in the air like smoke. Helen, my father's voice was firmer now. That's enough. It's not enough. My mother's voice rose slightly. I have tried, David. God knows I have tried with her. But she makes it so hard. She's always been so hard. And I'm tired of pretending that today, this graduation, changes anything. It doesn't. She's still the same girl who never quite belonged here, who we never quite wanted, if I'm being completely honest. Diane made a small sound, maybe a gasp, maybe a laugh, I couldn't tell. Marcus looked up from his phone. My father went very still. What? I said, the word barely made it out. My mother took another sip of wine, slower this time. When she set the glass down, her hand was perfectly steady. I'm sorry, she said, and she didn't sound sorry at all. But someone had to say it. We wish you were never born. The table, the restaurant, the entire world compressed into that single sentence. We wish you were never born. Not, we wish things were different. Not, we're frustrated. Not even, we're disappointed. We wish you were never born. I stood up. I don't remember deciding to stand up, but suddenly I was on my feet, my chair scraping loud against the floor. People at nearby tables glanced over. The waiter approaching with dessert menus veered away. Elise? My father started. Don't. I grabbed my purse, my diploma folder, the graduation gown. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped everything. Don't. Oh, sit down, my mother said. Don't be dramatic. I'm just being honest. You're always saying you want honesty. You're right, I said. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it was coming from someone else. I do want honesty. Thank you for finally giving it to me. I walked out, through the restaurant, past the tables of happy families, past the hostess stand, out into the street where the rain had started again. Lighter now, misting. I walked for blocks without knowing where I was going. My phone buzzed in my purse. Once, twice, 3 times. I didn't look at it. I ended up on a bench near the river, the one I used to sit on between classes when I needed to think. The graduation gown was getting damp, the blue fabric darkening to navy. I sat there and watched the water move, and I tried to understand what had just happened. We wish you were never born. The thing is, I'd known. Some part of me had always known. Children sense these things even when no one says them out loud. I'd felt it in the way my mother held me as a baby. I'd seen the photos, her arms stiff, her smile tight. I'd felt it in the birthday parties where Diane got elaborate celebrations and I got cake from the grocery store. I'd felt it in the way my mother forgot my school events but never forgot Marcus's games. I'd felt it in 1,000 small moments that added up to a single, undeniable truth. I was not wanted. But hearing it said out loud, on the day I'd hoped would finally change things, was different. It was like spending your whole life suspecting you might be terminally ill and then having a doctor confirm it. The knowing doesn't prepare you for the saying. I sat there until the rain stopped and the sky began to darken. My phone had stopped buzzing. Eventually, I took it out. 7 missed calls, 3 from my father, 2 from Diane, 1 from Marcus, 1 from my mother. There were texts, too, from my father. Please come back. We can talk about this. From Diane. Mom didn't mean it. She's just stressed. You know how she gets. From Marcus. This is awkward. Can you just apologize so we can move on? From my mother. Nothing. That voicemail, though. I almost didn't listen to it. I should have left the past in the past. But I pressed play, and my mother's voice filled my ear, measured and calm. "Elise, you walked out in the middle of dinner, which was rude and exactly the kind of behavior I was talking about. I understand you're upset, but you need to understand something. I have always done my duty by you. I have fed you, clothed you, given you opportunities, but I will not pretend to feel something I don't feel. That would be dishonest. You're an adult now. You can handle the truth. Call me when you're ready to have a mature conversation about this." I deleted it. Then I blocked all their numbers. Then I went home to my tiny apartment, peeled off my damp graduation gown, and lay on my bed in the dark, staring at the ceiling. The thing about betrayal is that it clarifies. Suddenly, everything makes sense. Every birthday where I felt invisible, every family photo where I was positioned slightly outside the frame, every conversation where my achievements were minimized or ignored, every time I'd blamed myself for not being enough, for not trying hard enough, for not being the daughter they wanted. It wasn't me. It had never been me. I spent that night going through old boxes I'd brought from my parents' house over the years. Photos, mostly. Report cards. A few childhood drawings. There weren't many. My mother wasn't sentimental about me the way she was about Diane and Marcus. Their baby books were elaborate, filled with first words and first steps and locks of hair. Mine was half empty, the entries sparse and clinical. But there were a few things. A birth certificate, my parents' marriage certificate, which I'd never really looked at before. I looked at it now, at the date. They were married in June of 1997. I was born in March of 1998. 9 months. Exactly 9 months. I pulled out my birth certificate again, looked at the date more carefully this time. March 15th, 1998. I'd always known my birth date, obviously, but I'd never done the math before. Never thought to. My mother had been pregnant when they got married. I thought about my mother, about the way she'd always presented herself. Conservative, controlled, image conscious, the kind of woman who cared deeply about what people thought, about maintaining respectability, about doing things the right way. I thought about the wedding photos I'd seen. My mother in white, her dress carefully chosen to hide what was probably a small bump. My father beside her, young and uncertain. I thought about Diane, born 2 years later, planned and wanted. Marcus, 3 years after that, the son they'd hoped for, and me. The mistake. The reason they'd had to get married before they were ready. I sat on my floor, surrounded by these documents, these pieces of evidence, and something inside me shifted from pain to something colder, clearer. I wanted to know everything. The next morning, I went to my father's office. He worked in accounting at a mid-sized firm downtown, the same job he'd had for 20 years. I'd been there once or twice before. The receptionist recognized me, smiled, said, "Congratulations on graduating," because she was kind and normal and didn't know my mother had wished I'd never been born. My father looked up when I walked into his office. He was alone, thank God. The door closed behind me with a soft click. "Elise?" He stood up. "Sweetheart, I'm so glad you came. I tried calling. I want you to tell me the truth," I said. "All of it?" He went very still. "About yesterday? Your mother didn't mean—" She meant it. I pulled out the marriage certificate, the birth certificate, laid them on his desk. "And I want to know why." My father looked at the documents. His face did something complicated. Resignation, relief, grief, all at once. He sat back down heavily. "How long have you known?" he asked quietly. "I figured it out last night, but you're going to tell me the rest. Why she's hated me my entire life." "She doesn't hate you." "Dad." I sat down across from him. "Yes, she does, and I need to know why. I need to understand." He was quiet for a long time. Outside his office, phones rang. People talked in the hallways. Normal office sounds for a normal Tuesday morning in a world that had become completely surreal. "We were 22, he finally said. "Just out of college. Your mother had plans, graduate school, a career in nonprofit management, travel. She was going to change the world." He smiled, sad and distant. She was extraordinary, brilliant, ambitious, and I was just me. I loved her desperately, but I always knew I was lucky to have her, that she was out of my league. What happened? We were careful, or we thought we were, but one night, he shook his head. It doesn't matter. She got pregnant with you, and everything she'd planned for herself evaporated. She could have chosen not to keep me, I said. The words hurt coming out, but they were true. Her parents were very religious, very traditional. Abortion wasn't an option, not for her, and adoption, she considered it. I know she did, but her parents convinced her that marriage was the right thing, the honorable thing, that we could make it work. But she didn't want to. She wanted her life back. My father's voice was so quiet I almost couldn't hear it. She wanted the future she'd planned, and every time she looked at you, you were a reminder of everything she'd lost. I tried to make her see that you were a gift, that we could build a beautiful life together, that having you didn't mean giving up on her dreams. But she never forgave you for existing, and she never forgave me for not being successful enough, accomplished enough, to make up for what she'd sacrificed. I sat there, absorbing this. 22 years of coldness and distance and barely concealed resentment explained in 3 minutes. Why did you stay with her? I asked. I loved her. I still do, and I kept hoping she'd change, that eventually she'd see you the way I see you, smart and kind and resilient. But the more I tried to make her love you, the more she pulled away from both of us. And then Diane came along, and Diane was planned, wanted. Marcus, too. They were the children she chose. You were the child who chose for her. You should have told me. I know. He looked at me with those sad eyes. I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry. I kept thinking if I just gave it more time, if I just tried harder to bridge the gap between you two, I was a coward. I'm still a coward. Yesterday, at that restaurant, I should have defended you, walked out with you, but I just sat there. Yeah, I said. You did. We sat in silence. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to tell him it was okay, to fall into the old pattern of managing everyone else's feelings while ignoring my own. But I was so tired. Tired of performing. Tired of trying to earn love from people who would never give it. What are you going to do? My father asked. I don't know yet, I said. But I'm done trying to make her love me. I'm done pretending we're a normal family. I'm done with all of it. Elise, no. I stood up, collected the certificates. I'm not asking for your permission or your blessing. I'm just telling you I'm done. I walked out of his office, out of the building, into the bright June morning. I felt hollowed out and full at the same time, like I'd purged something poisonous and the space it left was starting to fill with something else. Something that felt like clarity. Over the next few weeks, I moved through my life like a ghost. I packed up my apartment, started my new job, went through the motions. My father called occasionally. I didn't answer. Diane sent a few more texts saying I was overreacting, being dramatic, that family was supposed to forgive. I blocked her too. I thought about confronting my mother, writing her a letter, showing up at the house and demanding an apology. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized she would never apologize. She would never admit she was wrong. She had lived with her resentment so long it had become part of her identity. Confronting her would only give her another opportunity to tell me all the ways I'd disappointed her, all the ways I'd ruined her life simply by being born. So I didn't confront her. Instead, I started building something new. The consulting job was demanding in the best way. It required everything I had: intelligence, creativity, resilience, the ability to see problems from multiple angles. My manager, a woman named Patricia, who reminded me what competent kindness looked like, saw something in me. She gave me challenging projects, introduced me to clients, pushed me to think bigger. You have good instincts, she told me one afternoon, 3 months into the job. You see what's not being said, what's under the surface. That's rare. I thought about all those years of watching my mother's face for signs of approval, reading her moods, learning to navigate her emotional weather. Those survival skills had uses, it turned out. Just not the ones I'd expected. I made friends. Real friends, not just classmates or roommates. People who chose to spend time with me because they enjoyed my company, not because they were obligated by blood. We went to dinner, saw movies, took weekend trips, simple things that felt revolutionary because they were offered freely without resentment or scorekeeping. I dated. Nothing serious at first, just learning what it felt like to be chosen, to be wanted, to have someone look at me with genuine affection instead of tolerance. And I started going to therapy. Dr. Morrison was in her 50s. With gray hair, she wore short and glasses that kept sliding down her nose. She didn't offer platitudes or easy answers. She just asked questions, listened, and occasionally said things that made me realize how much I'd normalized. "When you talk about your childhood," she said during one session, "you describe it like you're reporting facts. Very matter of fact. No emotion." "Because I've processed it," I said. "Have you, or have you just learned to disconnect from it?" I didn't have an answer. "Elise," she said gently, "what your mother said to you at that dinner, that's abuse. That's emotional abuse. And from what you're telling me, it's part of a pattern that goes back your entire life. She fed me, clothed me, paid for things. The minimum requirements for keeping a child alive aren't the same as love. You know that, right? Did I? I'd spent so long making excuses for her, finding ways to blame myself. Even now, months later, part of me whispered that maybe I had been difficult, maybe I had required too much, maybe if I'd been different, better, easier. "Stop," Dr. Morrison said, like she could see the thoughts crossing my face. "That's the abuse talking. Children don't earn love by being easy. They deserve love because they exist. You deserved love because you existed. Deserved. Past tense. I still deserve it," I said quietly. "Yes," she said. "You do." I cried in her office that day. Really cried for the first time since the graduation dinner. Not quiet, controlled tears, but ugly, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep and old and wounded. And Dr. Morrison just sat there, patient and steady, holding space for all of it. "You're grieving," she said when I could finally breathe again. "You're grieving the mother you should have had, the childhood you should have had. That's necessary work. Let yourself do it." So I did. I grieved. And slowly, in the spaces between the grief, I started to build a version of myself that wasn't shaped by my mother's rejection. A version that existed independent of her approval or disapproval. It was harder than I expected. I kept catching myself seeking validation, trying to prove my worth through achievement. I worked too hard, said yes to everything, apologized constantly. Old patterns die hard, but I also started catching myself, started asking, whose voice is that? Who am I trying to prove something to? Usually the answer was my mother, and slowly, incrementally, I started answering. It doesn't matter. She doesn't get a vote anymore. A year passed. Then another. The consulting firm promoted me. I moved to a better apartment, one with actual sunlight and a kitchen that didn't require choosing between the refrigerator and the oven being open. I adopted a cat, a gray tabby I named Eleanor after Eleanor Roosevelt. She slept on my chest at night, purring, and I thought about how simple it was to make her happy. Food, warmth, affection, basic things, freely given. My father called on my birthday both years. We had brief, awkward conversations. He asked how I was. I said fine. He said he missed me. I said nothing. He never asked me to come back to the family. He never said he'd left my mother or stood up to her or done anything to change the fundamental dynamic. He just existed in the same sad limbo he'd always occupied, loving everyone and protecting no one. I didn't hear from my mother at all, not on my birthday, not on holidays, nothing. I told myself I didn't care. Mostly, I didn't. But sometimes, late at night, I'd wonder, did she ever think about me? Did she ever regret what she'd said? Did she ever lie awake and think about her daughter, living somewhere in the same city, and feel even a flicker of curiosity or concern or loss? Dr. Morrison said it didn't matter. What mattered was what I did with my life now. What I chose to build from the ruins of my childhood. I chose to build something good. In my third year at the firm, I was assigned to a major project with a healthcare nonprofit. The executive director was a woman named Sarah Chen, sharp and tireless and devoted to expanding access to mental health services in underserved communities. We worked together for 6 months, and somewhere in those long meetings and working dinners, she became a mentor, then a friend. "You should think about nonprofit work," she said one evening. We were in her office reviewing budget projections. "You have the skills for corporate consulting, obviously, but you have the heart for something more. More? More meaningful, more aligned with your values." She looked at me over her glasses. "What do you care about, Elise? Not what you're good at. What makes you angry? What do you want to fix?" I thought about it. I want kids who feel unwanted to know they're not alone. I want them to have resources, support, people who see them. Sarah nodded slowly. "There's your answer." 6 months later, I left the consulting firm. I took a pay cut and joined a nonprofit that worked with children in foster care and difficult family situations. It was harder work, emotionally, but it was right. Every kid I met who'd been told they were too much, too difficult, unwanted, I saw myself. And I got to be the person I'd needed when I was young. Patricia, my old manager, took me to lunch on my last day. "You're making a mistake career-wise," she said. "You could have made partner here in a few years." "I know, but you're making the right choice humanly." She smiled. "That's more important." The nonprofit was called Second Beginnings. I started as a program coordinator and within 2 years was promoted to director of family services. I built programs, hired staff, wrote grants, worked with families where love was complicated, where trauma ran deep, where the word should had to give way to is. I was good at it, not because I had perfect answers, but because I understood. I knew what it felt like to be the child nobody wanted. I knew what it took to survive that and build something better. And somewhere in those years of helping other people's children, I healed parts of my own childhood I hadn't known were still wounded. I was 27 when I met James. He was a pediatrician who volunteered with our programs, providing health screenings for kids in the foster system. Quiet, thoughtful, with dark eyes and a gentle smile that made something in my chest loosen. We started with coffee, then dinner, then weekend hikes and lazy Sunday mornings and conversations that lasted until 2 a.m. He told me about his parents who'd emigrated from Ghana and built a life through work and sacrifice and relentless hope. I told him about mine, about the graduation dinner, about the years of silence that followed. "Have you ever thought about reaching out?" he asked. "To say what?" "I don't know. Maybe not to them. Maybe just to close the chapter. Get closure." "Closure is a myth therapists sell us," I said. "Some things don't get resolved. They just get survived." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "You're probably right, but for what it's worth, I'm sorry you had to survive it." It was the first time someone had said that without trying to fix it, minimize it, or tell me I should forgive. I kissed him. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony. Just friends and a few colleagues. My father sent a card with a check. I deposited the check and threw away the card. None of my family was invited. I didn't even tell them it was happening. On my wedding day, getting ready in the small room behind the venue, I thought about my mother, wondered if she even knew I was getting married, wondered if she cared. Then Sarah knocked on the door. "You ready?" I looked at myself in the mirror. Simple white dress, hair down, minimal makeup. I looked happy. I looked free. "Yeah," I said, "I'm ready." James's parents cried during the ceremony. His mother hugged me after and said, "Welcome to our family. We're so happy you're here." Simple words that meant everything. That night, dancing with James at the reception, I realized I'd built a family. Not the one I was born into, but the one I chose. Friends who showed up, colleagues who believed in me, a husband who loved me not despite my damage, but alongside it. And I'd done it without my mother's blessing, without her presence, without her at all. It felt like winning. 3 more years passed. James and I bought a small house. I was promoted to executive director of Second Beginnings. We talked about having kids someday, but we weren't in a hurry. Life was full and good and ours. Then my father called. I almost didn't answer. I'd gotten good at not answering, but something made me pick up. Elise. His voice sounded old, tired. I need to talk to you. About what? Your mother. She's sick. My first thought, shamefully, was good. My second thought was, how sick? Cancer, my father said. Stage 3, ovarian. They caught it late. She's starting treatment, but the doctors aren't... He didn't finish. I sat down on my porch steps. Eleanor wound around my ankles, purring. I'm sorry to hear that. She wants to see you. Something hard formed in my chest. No. Elise, please, she's your mother. No, she's not. A mother is someone who loves you, who wants you. She made it very clear she never did. She got her wish. I've been gone for 8 years. She doesn't get to call me back now because she's scared. She's dying. We're all dying. She's just doing it faster. The cruelty of the word surprised me. I wasn't usually cruel, but something about this situation pulled it out of me. I know she hurt you, my father said. I know she said terrible things, but she's still your mother, and I hope, that facing death might have changed her perspective, given her some clarity. Has she said that? Has she said she wants to apologize? Silence. Dad, has she said she wants to apologize? She said she wants to see you, to talk. That's not the same thing. Maybe it's the beginning of the same thing. I closed my eyes, thought about all the years I'd spent hoping for exactly this. An apology, an acknowledgement, some sign that she regretted how she'd treated me. But I was different now. I didn't need her apology anymore. I'd built a life without it. Tell her no, I said. Tell her, I hope her treatment goes well, but I'm not coming. Elise? I'm not coming, Dad. And please don't call me about this again. If she actually wants to apologize, she knows how to reach me. But I'm not going to sit by her bedside and let her make me feel worthless one more time. I'm done. I hung up. James came home an hour later and found me on the porch, still sitting on the steps, Eleanor in my lap. What happened? He asked, sitting beside me. I told him. He was quiet for a long time. Then, what do you need? Not, you should go see her, or she's your mother, or you'll regret it if you don't. Just, what do you need? I need to not go, I said. I need to be okay with that decision. I need to not feel guilty. Then don't go and work on the guilt in therapy, but the not going part, that's decided. Okay? Okay. He put his arm around me and we sat there as the sun set, as the sky turned purple and gold as the day gave way to night. My father called 3 more times over the next few months. I didn't answer. He left voicemails updating me on my mother's condition. The cancer was aggressive. The treatment wasn't working as well as they'd hoped. She was getting weaker. Diane called once. I'd forgotten I'd blocked her on my old number, but not my new one. You need to come see Mom, she said without preamble. No. Elise, she's dying. You really want to live with that? With not saying goodbye? I said goodbye 8 years ago when she told me she wished I'd never been born. I don't need to say it again. She didn't mean that. She was just stressed. Diane, she's been just stressed my entire life. At some point, you have to stop making excuses for her. She's our mother. She's your mother. She made that very clear. Diane made an exasperated sound. You're being selfish. Marcus and I have been taking care of her, helping Dad, dealing with all of this. The least you could do is show up. The least I could do, I said slowly, is exactly what I'm doing. Living my life, being happy, not letting her make me feel worthless anymore, that's the least I could do, and it's exactly enough. I hung up and blocked her new number, too. Dr. Morrison and I spent several sessions talking about guilt and obligation and the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. You can forgive someone, she said, without letting them back into your life. Forgiveness is about your own peace. Reconciliation is about rebuilding relationship. You don't owe her reconciliation. Do I owe her forgiveness? You don't owe her anything. Forgiveness is something you give yourself, not her. It's releasing the hold her actions have on you. But you get to decide what that looks like and when, if ever, you're ready for it. I thought about that a lot, about what forgiveness meant, whether I'd already forgiven her by building a life she couldn't touch, whether forgiveness required seeing her, speaking to her, offering her absolution. I decided it didn't. I decided my peace was more important than her comfort. 6 months after my father's first call, he called again. I answered this time. "She's gone," he said. "Last night, peacefully in her sleep." I felt nothing. Or not nothing. Something, but not grief, not sadness. Just a strange, empty finality. "Okay," I said. "The funeral is Friday. Will you come?" I thought about it. Thought about showing up, seeing Diane and Marcus and all the extended family who'd witnessed my mother's coldness over the years and said nothing. Thought about standing by a casket and pretending to mourn. "No," I said. "I won't be there. At least people will ask. They'll wonder." "Let them wonder. She was your mother." "No, Dad, she wasn't. She was the woman who gave birth to me. That's all." He was quiet, then very softly. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you from her. That I let her treat you that way. I was weak, and I'm sorry." It was the first time he'd said it. The actual apology I'd needed all along. "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate that. I do, but I'm still not coming to the funeral." "I understand." We hung up. James found me in the kitchen afterward. "How are you?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "She's dead. I thought I'd feel something more." "You feel what you feel. There's no right way." I keep thinking about the what-ifs. What if she'd been different? What if she'd loved me? What if I'd had the childhood Diane and Marcus had? Who would I be? "You'd be someone else," James said. "Maybe happier, maybe more trusting, but maybe not you, and I like you." I laughed. It surprised me that I could laugh. "I like you too." "Are you sure about not going to the funeral?" "Completely sure." Instead of going to the funeral, I went to work. I spent the day meeting with families, reviewing cases, writing emails. Normal, good, meaningful work that mattered. That evening, I got a call from a lawyer, my mother's estate attorney. "Ms. Morgan?" Professional, neutral voice. "I'm calling about your mother's will. There's a provision that concerns you." "Okay." "She's left you something, a letter and a small bequest. I'll need you to come to the office to receive them." I almost said no, almost told him to throw whatever it was away, but curiosity won. I went the following week. The lawyer's office was exactly what you'd expect: dark wood, leather chairs, the smell of old paper. He handed me a manila envelope. "The bequest is $5,000, he said. "And this letter. She left specific instructions that you were to receive both." I took the envelope home, set it on my kitchen table, stared at it for 3 days before I finally opened it. The check was there, made out to me. $5,000. Nothing, really, in the grand scheme. Diane and Marcus probably got the house, the savings, everything else. And the letter. 2 pages, handwritten. My mother's precise, controlled script. I almost didn't read it, but I did. "Elise, I suppose if you're reading this, I'm dead. I debated whether to write this at all. Your father thought I should. He's been encouraging me to make peace with you for years. I've resisted because I don't believe in deathbed conversions or false sentiment. But I find myself with time to think, lying here, and some things should probably be said. You were not planned. You know that by now. You were always too smart not to figure it out eventually. I was 22 and pregnant and terrified, and I did what I thought was right. I married your father, I had you, I tried to build a life, but every time I looked at you, I saw everything I'd lost. My plans, my dreams, my freedom. You were a constant reminder of the future I'd given up, and I resented you for it. That wasn't fair. I know that now. You were just a child. You didn't ask to be born. You didn't do anything wrong. The failure was mine, not yours. I wish I could say I loved you anyway. That maternal instinct overcame my resentment, but I'd be lying, and I've decided I'm done lying, at least in this letter. I didn't love you the way I should have, the way a mother should love a daughter. I tried, sometimes, but I couldn't access that feeling. It just wasn't there. Diane and Marcus were different. They were chosen, wanted. I could love them freely because they didn't cost me anything. You cost me everything, and I never forgave you for it. I know you stopped speaking to us after the graduation dinner. Your father told me what you said to him, why you left. He thinks I should have apologized. But I've never been good at apologizing for truth, even when the truth is cruel. I did wish you'd never been born. I've wished it 1,000 times. But here's what I've learned. Lying here dying. Wishing doesn't make things so. You were born. You existed. You exist. And the life you've built, your father tells me about it sometimes, even though I pretend not to listen. The life you've built is remarkable. You didn't need me to do it. You did it anyway. I don't know if that says something about your strength or my failure. Probably both. This letter isn't an apology. I'm not sorry for being honest about my feelings, even if those feelings were ugly. But I am sorry that you were born to a mother who couldn't love you. You deserved better than me. I'm leaving you $5,000. It's not much. It's nothing compared to what I'm leaving your siblings. But I've set up the rest to go to them because they have families, children, lives that overlap with mine in ways yours never did. Use this money for something meaningful. Or don't use it at all. I don't care. I hope you've built a good life without me. I suspect you have. Helen. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully, put it back in the envelope, and set it aside. James came home and found me sitting at the kitchen table, the letter in front of me. What is it? My mother's last words to me. He sat down. Do you want to talk about it? She still didn't apologize, not really. She just explained, like if I understood her reasoning, it would hurt less. Does it? No. I looked at him. She told me I deserved better than her. She's right, but it took her dying to say it. What are you going to do? I thought about it, about all the revenge fantasies I'd had over the years, about calling her out publicly, exposing her cruelty, making sure everyone knew what she'd done. But what would that accomplish? She was dead. She couldn't feel shame anymore, couldn't be hurt by my words the way I'd been hurt by hers. The best revenge, I realized, was exactly what I'd already done. I'd built a beautiful life without her. I'd found love, purpose, meaning. I'd become the person she said I could never be. I'd survived her, and then I'd thrived. I'm going to cash the check, I said, and I'm going to donate it to Second Beginnings, in her name, a fund for kids whose parents can't love them the way they deserve. James smiled. That's perfect. And then I'm going to finish grieving. Not for her, for the mother I needed and never had. And then I'm going to let it go. Can you do that? I think so. I think I've been doing it already, bit by bit, for 8 years. This is just the last piece. I set up the fund the following week, the Helen Morgan Memorial Fund for Unwanted Children. I didn't tell anyone in my family about it. I just did it. And slowly, over the months that followed, I felt the last threads of anger and hurt begin to loosen. I didn't forgive her, exactly. But I released her. I stopped letting her voice be the one I heard when I doubted myself. I stopped measuring my worth by her absence. I just moved on. James and I had a daughter 2 years later. We named her Claire, after no one in particular, just a name we liked, a fresh start. When I held her for the first time, all pink and squalling and perfect, I understood something I hadn't before. I understood how my mother could have looked at me and felt resentment instead of love. Because it would have been so easy in those early, exhausting weeks to blame this tiny, helpless creature for the sleep deprivation and the sore body and the way my life had fundamentally changed. But I didn't. I looked at Claire, and I felt only love, fierce, uncomplicated, unconditional love, and I realized my mother had a choice. Every day, she had a choice. She could have chosen differently. She could have worked through her resentment, gone to therapy, found a way to separate her own disappointment from her daughter's worth. She chose not to. That was her failure, not mine. I would not repeat it. Claire is 5 now. She's bright and funny and occasionally difficult in the way all 5-year-olds are difficult. But when she's difficult, I don't resent her. I don't wish she'd never been born. I just love her through it. Because that's what mothers do. Real mothers. My father died last year. Heart attack, sudden and swift. Diane called to tell me. We had a brief, awkward conversation. She told me about the funeral arrangements. I said I'd send flowers, but wouldn't attend. "You're never going to let this go, are you?" she said. "I let it go years ago," I told her. "I just let it go in a direction that doesn't include you." In his will, my father left me his wedding ring and a note that said simply, "I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I didn't say it enough." I put the ring in a box with the letter from my mother, evidence of the family I'd survived. Sometimes Claire asks about my parents, about where Grandma and Grandpa are. "They passed away," I tell her. "A long time ago." "That's sad," she says. "Sometimes," I say. "But we have Grandma and Grandpa Chen, and they love you very much." "I know," she says, and runs off to play. She will never know the weight of being unwanted. She will never wonder if she's enough. She will grow up secure in the knowledge that she is loved simply because she exists. That's my revenge. That's my victory. I took everything my mother denied me, love, security, worth, and I gave it to myself. And then I turned around and gave it to my daughter. I didn't let her brokenness break me. I didn't become her. The $5,000 from my mother's estate has grown over the years. The Helen Morgan Fund has helped 43 children, 43 kids who were told they were unwanted, too much, not enough. 43 kids who got counseling, support, resources. I think about that sometimes. How my mother's money she begrudged me even in death, is now helping kids survive what I survived. There's a poetry to it. I'm 34 now. I have a career I love, a husband who cherishes me, a daughter who delights me, friends who see me. I have a life that is full and good and entirely mine. My mother wished I'd never been born, but I was born, and I built something beautiful anyway. Not despite her cruelty, but because of what it taught me, about resilience, about the kind of mother I wanted to be, about the difference between blood and family. I don't think about her much anymore. When I do, it's not with anger, just a kind of distant sadness for the woman who let resentment consume her, who died without ever knowing what it felt like to release it. I'm not sad for me. I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm sad for her. For everything she missed by holding on to her bitterness. For the daughter she could have known, if she'd been willing to see me. But that was her choice. And mine was to survive her and then to thrive. Last week I was cleaning out old boxes and found the letter again, my mother's final words. I read it one more time, and this time I felt nothing. No pain, no anger, just a kind of quiet acknowledgement. She couldn't love me, but I learned to love myself. She wished I'd never been born, but I'm glad I was. James came into the room and saw me holding the letter. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. I folded the letter, put it back in the box with my father's ring, and closed the lid. Some stories don't get happy endings, but some of us get happy middles, happy right nows, and that's enough. That's more than enough. He took everything that could be touched. I took everything that couldn't, the truth and my peace.